Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today, I'm going to be reacting to Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K short special in Defiance of Fate After Talk. Yes, made by AFanWithTooMuchTime. If you guys want to check out my previous reaction to the short special in Defiance of Fate, as well as other episodes in the Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K, remember the playlist card is going to be at the top here. Just click on it and be able to access them. If you want to check out the original video as well as AFanWithTooMuchTime's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hey there, everybody. Fan with Too Much Time here, coming at you with another After Talk. So, I really hope that you guys enjoyed the performance here. I, for one, love Michael's voice. I think that if he's not already doing more stuff with his voice, he really ought to. He's got a radio quality voice, let me tell you. I mean, honestly, I am extremely envious of that kind of voice. I don't know how you guys hear me, but, I tell my brother this all the time, it's funny for me that people like my reading voice because I think my voice sounds retarded. I don't know. Maybe it's just like my brother tells me everyone thinks their voice sounds stupid, and maybe...
You're selling yourself too short there. I finished too much time. You have a good voice, really. You have an amazing voice, especially when you voice act the different characters in your Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K project. All those different characters, you voice them all with their own uniqueness to it. So yes, you're really, really good. But Michael was good too. I think I said this yesterday that his voice reminds me of those documentaries I used to watch on History Channel, Discovery Channel, National Geographic, Animal Planet. He has that voice for those type of things. So yeah, his voice was also pretty cool. But you are good. Don't ever doubt that.
That's true. I legitimately almost didn't have the guts to put this out because I was just like, my voice sounds so dumb. Who's gonna want to hear me talk for any amount of time? And I feel like that's a problem that Michael probably has never had because he's got a very, very nice radio voice. So go ahead and applaud him. Please be generous. Us creatives who put this out, especially as fans, we really do have to support each other. We're all fans here, so let's support each other like that and spread the love around, especially since no one's being paid for any of this. So, in any case, huge thank you to Michael Wilson for putting this forward and for helping me out with this. And hey, maybe we'll see a bit more of him in the future as well. I always love seeing the love from the fans and contributions like that. Speaking of which, January 1st, not only will that be when we finally get Warhammer versus Star Wars, or Star Wars versus Warhammer, when we get the whole series back on track and start releasing more regularly, and I'm going to give you guys the week-long rumble, but on top of that, and on January 1st and throughout the week, I will reveal how you can actually help to support me if you want to support me. Obviously, it's not really to do with Warhammer vs. 40K, but it's more of a teach a man to fish sort of thing. I'm going to try to, you'll see. I won't spoil the surprise, but if it is your goal to help me out and reward me for anything that you feel that I might deserve for having put forward this series, or if you just want to express appreciation, there will be a way for you to do that on January 1st. And to any who do, you will literally be helping make another human being's dream come true. But like I said, more on that when it occurs. So, on to the Q&As, because I know a fair amount of you are literally just here for the Q&As. So let's go ahead and roll on into those. Before I begin, I'm already seeing a bunch of questions on here as I scroll down that I don't think I'll be able to answer. you guys got to remember that if you're asking me like how a faction that's currently in play will react to certain things, I mostly can't answer those questions without giving spoilers. Like, the only time I can answer those questions is when the reactions are more or less by the by or irrelevant. And you'll kind of see what I mean, but, you know, I feel like those answers might be less satisfying because the emphasis won't be on them, or they will be sort of obvious answers one way or the other. And the ones that are more than that, I won't be able to get into them because that's spoilers, and I honestly rather that you guys wait and experience the answer than hear me tell you about it, you know, in a Q&A. I've already done that a few times, and I prefer not to keep doing it because it's more fun for it to be in the story first. So, moving on, let's see here. Mr. Shadier, Q&A. Which interpretation of Ventress are you going with? The comic version or the Clone Wars version? Okay. So, please do correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm by no means like an absolute master of the lore or anything like that. But I do believe with like a 98% certainty that Asajj Ventress is dead. She's already had her whole, you know, run-in with being a bounty hunter. She left Dooku's side, fell in love with Quinlan Vos, and then went and got, you know, killed by Dooku.
Really? I've always considered her as a survivor. You know, she's always been able to escape difficult situations through the skin of her teeth most of the time. You know? Wow. Okay.
When she got involved with Quinlan's whole mission. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that maybe that's the way she dies, maybe she dies another way, but I think that either way, no matter how she dies, I'm pretty sure she's dead.
I don't remember seeing her die in Clone Wars. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure if she's really dead or she just went into the shadows and vanished. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Less than a week out from like Order 66. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure that that's the condition she typically finds herself in at this point. So it almost makes the question a moot point, which is a shame because you know, if you can reveal to me that she's still alive, I'll definitely put her in because I love Asajj Ventress. I loved her when she first showed up in Gendry Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, his Clone Wars series, which was just so fucking good. You know, I'll tell you why that shit wasn't allowed to be canon. Because it was so fucking cool that George Lucas must have felt like at least partially threatened by it. Shit was the coolest Star Wars stuff we got, maybe ever, man. That stuff was so good. God, Gendry is a master, and he put that to work for Star Wars, and why couldn't we have that Grievous? Well, don't worry. We will. But more on that later. So in any case, excuse me. Moving on to the next question. Oh, right, my bad. Before I move on, Asajj Ventress, though. If you can show me that she's still alive, then I will definitely include her. I'll do a bit more research on her different timelines, because they definitely blend together for me. She's very similar to herself. She's not very different. I am glad that she survived Anakin's battle at the Jedi Temple, because that's the one thing about Gendry's version. I think we would have lost Ventress there if we'd gone 100% with his canon. And I really like her character design. I like what she brings to like the mix. You know, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like, isn't there sort of like a, you know, a flirty, sort of not quite sexual, but not quite casual, like energy between her and Obi-Wan Kenobi? You know, like.
Yes, they do have this certain type of frenemy relationship, if I could say that. You know, whenever they meet up, they're always, you know, talking to each other, like in some sort of like a banter kind of way, you know. And yeah, it does seem as if they're like ex-lovers or something, and you know, they have to fight each other and stuff like that. I don't know, like every time when they are together, it always seems a bit funny, you know, because they talk before they go to battle, and they talk while they're battling, and then they talk when one of them has to escape. And usually that is, you know, Asajj Ventress. When she has to escape, she always tries to have the last word, and then she goes aboard a vessel and she flies away or something. Yeah.
Is it just me? Am I the only one who notices that? Because I really love seeing them together. You know, not that I necessarily ship the two of them, you know, but I might fling the two of them. She's great, and he's great, and they're great in a room. Their banter is fantastic. So yeah, I love Asajj Ventress. I would love her to be in this, but I'm pretty sure she's dead. So, moving on, Patrick Kaminsky, or Patrick Kaminsky. Q&A. In Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K, how do you think what machine spirit is, can Jedi feel its soul in Force? Okay, that was a bit butchered. Let me try to understand that a bit better. Can the Jedi feel the machine spirits in the Force? Well, yes and no. You have to remember that there's kind of different categories of machine spirit that are they're homogenized within the Imperium and the Mechanicus, but there are machine spirits that are the result of nascent AI that are within, you know, machines. There are machine spirits that are a result of human components, like human brain pieces, going as extensive as the anamnesis, all the way to things that are much, much more compartmentalized, where they're like literal brain and gray matter integrated into tubes that are fused into circuitry that, when all linked together, begin to form some sort of a soul-mind cohesion that isn't quite conscious but is more than that, and therefore recognized as a machine spirit. Hell, you know, there might be some sect of the Mechanicus that classify automatic doors that open and close without a signal to be machine spirits. So machine spirits are very variable in a lot of their definition. The machine spirits that are remnants of AI and whatnot, it's very unlikely that the Jedi would be able to sense those, at least any more than they normally can, and I'll explain that in a moment. But insofar as the machine spirits that are a result of human bits and pieces being woven into machinery, yeah, they actually will be able to sense that. But it won't be like it stands out. It'll be much more muted than a standard, you know, human soul, because it's this scattered, barely alive presence, sort of like an ultra cyborg, but in the reverse, where the machine is wearing human bits versus the human wearing machine bits. Now, insofar as the ones that are just pure machine spirits and that they're like a nascent AI that exist inside of a piece of machinery, okay, so how do I go about even explaining this? Okay, so the Jedi can already sense that. Men like Quinlan Voss have very specific abilities that let them do all kinds of things with that. He has I forget exactly what his ability is called, but he can literally touch machines and go through their minds, and also touch inanimate objects and go through their minds, and he has an ability to bind to that more. But in KOTOR 2, more than even this example, Kreia shows us that the Jedi are fully capable of noticing and sensing machines, even typically mindless machines like brainwashed mining drones that don't typically even have personality cores. They can sense them because everything ends up getting equalized through the Force, so it just matters as to what you're trying to sense and how good you are at it and what your point of view is. Jedi typically cannot sense droids, however, because they don't typically internally recognize them as life forms, and therefore they don't. That like belief is a limiting belief, or that.
And you know, going by what he's saying, you know, I'm just thinking about Anakin Skywalker and his connection with R2-D2. Maybe R2-D2 does have a spirit within him, or it. I'm not sure about the gender of R2-D2, but yeah, you know, R2-D2 might have a machine spirit. C-3PO might have a machine spirit, and maybe that's why Anakin Skywalker has such an affinity, a connection with these, machines. Not only because Anakin Skywalker created or rebuilt C-3PO, and you know, R2-D2 was with him on during the Battle of Naboo, you know, but when I watch other people in the Star Wars universe, or should I say other organics, you know, working together with droids or with other forms of artificial intelligence, they just don't seem to recognize them as individuals, as important members of the society. They just see them as tools, you know, to be used. If they should be destroyed in battle, yes, it's a sad moment, but then they carry on as if, you know, they just lost their favorite toy, and then they just go back to doing whatever they want to do. But then when it comes to Anakin Skywalker, he really cares about R2D2. He cares about C3PO. He even gave C3PO to his the love of his life, you know, Padme Amidala, and R2D2 is with Anakin Skywalker almost every single time when they go on missions, when they're on planets, you know, whenever they're always together, they're always working together, and he always, like, if R2D2 is in trouble, he goes out there to save his life. So he recognizes probably the spirit, the machine spirit within R2D2's, you know, body, if I can say that. Yeah. So I think maybe, you know, Anakin Skywalker can sense the machine spirits within his closest, you know, machine companions.
Perspective. It's not even a belief. It's this perspective of what qualifies things you can even sense through the living force. They limit themselves. The Sith also do it. The Sith is an offshoot of the Jedi Order, and they have a very similar perspective on what it is to sense a thing in the living force and what it means to be a living creature. But Kreia blows that shit out of the water and shows the Jedi Exile how you can sense machines through the force. If you just allow yourself to and don't restrict yourself to those definitions and enable yourself to feel the more subtle connections within the force. So yes and no, but the reason I can even answer this question is because in very rare cases will this result in any kind of dramatic reaction. The Jedi, even when they sense machine bits that have human bits in them, won't necessarily know what they're sensing, especially if that is a piece of machinery that has a bunch of people in it or is being wielded by a person, in which case the Jedi is much more likely to just assume that whatever they're sensing is the people and not the machines. So in any case, moving on from that one, we have a Russian name that is in Russian awesome language, and I do not know how to read it. But your Q&A is, what is your favorite race in Warhammer Fantasy battles? Okay, so my favorite race in Warhammer Fantasy is the Skaven. I love the Skaven. I just love the Skaven. I love them because they're like trolls. I love them because of how much they do and don't do. I love them because I can literally just imagine Skaven doing almost anything in the world. They're so hilariously like psychotic. They're so great. I mean, there was this animation a little while ago that popped up on my YouTube channel, which was this animation of this vampire girl and this elf girl petting a Skaven and calling it cute, and this Skaven being like, no, not cute, no. And I'm like, I could not fucking stop laughing at it, because borderline the most unrealistic part about that is just any given vampire elf petting a Skaven. But were a Skaven treated like that, it would totally act that way, but like not stop you. It would totally act that way, but it would not stop you. It would.
You know, I did know of the existence of Warhammer, you know, fantasy. I just haven't really focused my time on, you know, getting into that. I'm still focused on 40K for now. But yes, there will come a time, I'm not sure when, because there's a lot to go through with 40K, where I start focusing on Warhammer fantasy. And yeah, you know, I'm not entirely sure about this faction that AFanWithTooMuchTime is talking about right now, but it sounds like a very funny faction. I'm not sure. What did you call it again? Skaven? Yeah, interesting.
Love it, and also be totally unable to admit that it loves whatever the fuck it's getting. Skaven are so much fun. I mean, playing the Skaven campaign in Warhammer Total War has been just a fucking treat. For one thing, the Skaven are such an incredibly great blend of like loyal, not loyal, smart, not smart, strong, not strong. They're everything and nothing. They're a total fucking mess, and I love it.
So they're like an all-rounder or like a jack of all trades. Okay.
Fucking love it. They're ninjas, they're mutants, they're fucking snipers, they're warlocks and wizards and engineers all in one.
So yeah, jack of all trades. Okay.
I can't get enough of the Skaven. So by far my favorite faction is the Skaven. I would love to do stuff with them. I love doing stuff with them. I would role play a Skaven in a D&D campaign if it were at all possible. So that's definitely my answer to that. So let's see here. Clever McGeneric name. That's a fucking great name. All right, let's see here. Is this set in Mouse Universe or E Universe? It's mixed in neither and both. I mix both of them together. I am dissatisfied with both of them in different ways, and I use both of them to fill each other out. That being said, you know, The Mandalorian aside and other Disney shows aside, the Disney sequels, we are in that timeline. Rey will exist if I can help it, but only because I see so much wasted potential. So much fucking wasted potential in what Rey could have been, what Kylo Ren could have been, what Finn should have fucking been, that it's irresistible for a fan fiction writer like myself not to use shitty lore like that in the future, just because I want to do it better. I want to do it better, god damn it. You know,
I know you'll do it better, definitely. And yeah, like if you have it in you to make a story based on those characters, please do it, you know, because what Disney gave us, this half-cooked, half-baked, you know, catastrophe, I'm sure anyone else can do a better job, truly. Yeah.
It can be hard to improve on a masterpiece, you know, and that shit is not a masterpiece, so it's pretty good and fertile ground. But to answer your question, both. So then let's go up. Jeff2146. Q&A. What is the name of the regiment that 1313 belongs to? Making a Warhammer 40K mod for Wargame Red Dragon. I would like to include it as an Easter egg. Now, that is a good question. I'm pretty sure that 1313 belongs to the, what was it, like the 553rd Infantry Regiment. I forget if they had a modifier, like if that was an Assault Infantry Regiment or a Siege Infantry Regiment. I'm pretty sure it was just an Infantry Regiment, though. So that's the 553rd Infantry Regiment. That would be his. So, hey, that's fucking awesome. Let me see here. Making a Warhammer 40K mod for Wargame Red Dragon, and would like to... That's awesome, man. That's... Yo, if you do, thank you. That's super cool, dude, because, again, just more fans working on each other, and that's... I love seeing that. Alright, so let's see here. Luke Sheely. I hope I'm saying that right. Q&A. Have you played Halo Infinite? If so, what do you think? I have not played Halo Infinite. I have no intention of playing Halo Infinite. I love Halo, and I fucking cannot watch 343 touch it anymore. As far as I'm concerned, Halo ended at Halo 3. Master Chief is still floating in space, and I'll probably fucking use him for something one day, and maybe write a goddamn cool crossover with him, but I would not go past Halo 3. I don't know what Halo Infinite is. I don't care what Halo Infinite is. The name Halo Infinite hurts my fucking brain to hear, because listen to how generic that name is, man. Listen to how generic that name is. Infinite is literally like in my top 5 like things they add on to a video game's name when they've got no fucking idea what they want to do with the game, or when they're just trying to add the most generic ass title possible.
Yeah. You know, I've been watching the gameplay for Halo 1, 2, and 3. I played Halo Reach. That game was amazing. I really loved that game. Halo Wars and Halo Wars 2. I've also seen the gameplay and cinematics for those as well. I've been told that 4 and 5, Halo 4 and 5 have not been very good. 1, 2, and 3 are good, but 4 and 5 are not good because that's when they changed over, to a different studio. And I also kind of feel bad for what happened with the Halo TV series. I wished that they could have emulated Halo Reach with that TV series, but they gave us something I just didn't really recognize it as Halo, like part of the Halo universe. It was a bit weird. And Halo Infinity, I think the reason why they called it Infinity was because, they're going to continue putting in new content on this Infinity, game installment. So they're going to be on this game for a very, very long time. You're going to be having new content, new missions, new characters, all of them centered around on this Halo ring, But I wish they could have joined it together with Halo Wars. Have the Spirit of Fire come in to save the day since, the main battleship of the UNSC has been destroyed. I think it was called the UNSC Infinity, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that ship was destroyed. So, maybe the Spirit of Fire can come in there and help out Master Chief and all the other people who are stranded on the ring, So I just wish they could have done that. And I don't even know if we're going to have a Halo Wars 3 anytime soon. It doesn't seem like it. So, yeah. I understand what AFanWithTooMuchTime is saying. He doesn't recognize Halo Infinity. And that's understandable. Yeah.
I don't know anything about Halo Infinite. I don't even look in that direction. Halo to me ended at Halo 3. It never died. It is in cryo sleep. And I'm sorry. I'm still so fucked up from Halo 5 that I really can't look at that right now. Halo 3 is as far as I go. I love Halo Reach. I love ODST, but I can't touch 343. Sorry. Personal opinion there. You got another one. Let's see. Q&A. Do you think any of the other factions in Star Wars would have had a chance against the Imperium? I.e. Rebels, Empire, First Order, Resistance. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. First Order, no. Their forces are too small. And yes, they have that planet killer weapon of theirs, Star Killer base. It's still not enough. The Resistance, no. Because they act like the rebels during the Empire. They are a guerrilla tactic kind of force. So they will be outnumbered, they will be outgunned, and even with the guerrilla tactics, it just won't be enough to, crush the Imperium of Man. The Empire I think they are a bit different because they have the entire arsenal and military output of the galaxy at their beckoning and call, So it might be a bit different with the Empire, because also they come directly from the Galactic Republic. They transitioned from the Galactic Republic into the Galactic Empire. So it's still pretty much the same, forces. It's just that, they will change over time into different types of forces. But essentially, I think they would, prove as a threat to the Imperium of Man. But ultimately, they will be defeated. Because they'll be heading down the same situation that the Galactic Republic has. The Imperium of Man has so many special forces. Who was it again who said this? I forgot the character, but yes, it was the Magus Dominus. Yes, she said that the Imperium of Man has got various types of special forces, not just the Astartes, not just the Astra Militarum and their different regiments, but they have other forces like the Officio Assassinorum. You got your Mechanicus of Mars, forces. You have your Titan units. You have your your knights as well. You have so many different types of organizations within the Imperium of Man that can easily overwhelm any forces from the Galactic Empire or the Galactic Republic, and would completely obliterate anything from the Resistance or the First Order. Even the New Republic, they won't stand a chance against a force like this. So, yeah, it'll be very difficult. But I think the one that is likely to win, or not win, but to stand a chance of keeping themselves alive for a very long time, is the Galactic Empire. Yeah. Anything else beyond that, you can forget it.
So, I don't think that any of the Star Wars universe has a chance against the direct Imperium. Like, if you're talking about this strike force that we're seeing here, you don't even know if the Republic is going to fight them off or not, or what sort of resolution that will, you don't know what form that resolution will take. But if we're talking about, here comes the whole Imperium of Man, more or less, or if we just had it so that the two universes teleported into each other, so it was like an ultra thick galaxy with all the planets in between, which there's enough space between planets to do that.
Imagine the Milky Way galaxy of Warhammer 40K mixing together with the Star Wars galaxy. They would make a very big galaxy. It would be almost the size of the Andromeda galaxy, maybe, or maybe even bigger. I don't know. But yeah, that would be very chaotic, very exciting, with the different types of creatures that live in space, and the warp as well, interfering in the reality of those who've been living in the Star Wars galaxy. It'll just be a exciting, messy affair, because it won't just be the Imperium of Man. There'll be the other factions of the Warhammer 40K galaxy in this new galaxy that is born, and the Star Wars side will be swamped. They will be overwhelmed with everything that is going on around them, to the point where I think even the Galactic Empire would be disintegrating at the seams, because things would just be so chaotic. Yeah.
It's just they would fuck gravity up and orbits up. But assuming that didn't happen, and we literally just layered the universes over each other, what you would find is that the PDF forces and the battle fleets of the Imperium are fucking stupid big and stupid overpowered compared to what you have going around in Star Wars almost at any given time. You could make the case that the Empire would last longer because of how militarized it was, but the sad thing is that it wouldn't really help that much. There would be instant conflict all across the galaxy, and they would hold ground more, but that might even be worse, because while there would definitely be mass genocides all over the place in any instance, there are common sense Imperial governors and Inquisitors who would accept surrenders from planets that are otherwise just obviously fucking crazy outmatched. Imperials aren't really brave or loyal. I mean, Imperials from the Galactic Empire aren't really brave or loyal to the Galactic Empire. They're just heinously ambitious and self-interested. But they're also heinously short-sighted and arrogant. So I can see some of them surrendering because they can see that they're just totally outmatched, I see the vast majority of them opening with an insult, demanding subjugation to the true emperor of the galaxy, and that just, oh my god. The problem is that it's one thing for the Imperium to come across some galactic republic, some godless galactic republic. It's a whole different thing for them to come across another galactic empire who has another human sitting on a throne. That's a big no-no.
I think the Galactic Empire's imperial officers and generals and whoever else in the administration, they might try to switch sides to the Imperium of Man. Not only because they're human, and the Imperium of Man will accept them with open arms, if I can say, if they're human. So they might want to have a position in this new reality. that they exist in. Since the Galactic Empire is falling, and there's no cohesion, there's no communication, there's no understanding about the proper chains of command anymore, because there's so much chaos. But the Imperium of Man is there. They have the answers. They have the overwhelming firepower. They have the overwhelming force, and those Imperial officers and generals and whoever else might want to join them on their side, because, like AFanWithTooMuchTime did say, that they are ambitious, they are arrogant. They don't have any type of loyalty to the Empire. They are just there for their own self-enrichment and benefit. So they will choose the winning side, and the winning side is the Imperium of Man, not the Galactic Empire. By that point, yes.
That's like on just principle. We have to kind of beat you guys down and grind any military asset you have to dust, and then maybe still blow your planet up depending on how we feel about it. But my whole point is that it might even be less destructive if it were out of the Imperial era, despite the the Galactic Empire's ability to defend itself more cohesively. And that's also in large part because no matter what losses are or are not taken, the Imperium would still win. And part of the reason the Imperium would still win is because there is almost no weakness. Like, there's no... Like, okay, the Emperor is not a person. He is a planet. He is Holy Terra. And I mean that more in just like a metaphorical sense. Him being attached to the Golden Throne being attached to the temple on Terra, and Terra being attached to its temple, basically means that the entire planet, because the Emperor can't be moved off of it, is treated like this. It's just so fortified that there's just no... I don't see any Imperial fleet getting close to it. Like, they'd maybe enter the Sol System, maybe even with the Death Star, and honestly, they just get hit with so many Nova cannons and like, the Imperium of Man would definitely overestimate them. Like, they would shoot more than would be required to actually finish them. They would not underscore that, because no one is supposed to get within range of that planet.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Look, if they have the Death Star and they hyper jump into hyperspace, and they drop out of hyperspace orbiting Earth or Terra, I'm afraid no matter how many Nova cannons they have, they still have to charge them. They still have to recognize there's an enemy right in front of them. And that's just too much time. By that time, the Death Star would have already charged its primary weapon and fired it on Terra and destroyed the planet almost immediately. So, yeah, I'm not sure. If the Galactic Empire, plays its cards right, and we've seen it before. We've seen how the Death Star can, jump into a system very close to the planet that it wants to target, and it activates the weapon, and it destroys the planet. So it's possible. It's not going to be like in Star Wars New Hope, where the Death Star jumped into the system and it has to orbit around the gas giant just to target the rebel planet. We've seen it in Star Wars. What was the name of that movie again? Rogue One. Yeah, how the Death Star can just jump into the system, jump very close to the planet, and it can target its primary weapon there. So there's a chance. There's a chance.
So I don't really have an expectation that the Galactic Empire will be able to assault its way into Holy Terra to destroy the Golden Throne. And it's debatable that if they did that it would actually stop the Imperium. Because again, you have to remember that the God Emperor is a god, and they might not even tell anyone. Like if the Galactic Empire just starts saying, "Oh, we destroyed our Emperor," and then the next biggest Inquisitor is like, "No, they didn't." Well, I mean, that's it, man. It's your word against theirs, and if we're not in the Warhammer 40K universe where we fucking need him to warp travel, there's just no... It doesn't matter. And even if it did, it wouldn't matter. People would still believe. Like, there would be mass, chaos across the Imperium, but the Imperium is so decentralized that it would effectively be down to 1,000,001 leaders to hold control of their different factions, and that would have variable amounts of success. Now let's contrast that with the Empire. The Empire has the Emperor. The Emperor dies, and the whole thing begins to fucking fall apart immediately.
Yeah, just like what AFanWithTooMuchTime is saying, you know, the Imperium of Man is following an ideal now, you know. The Emperor is not just this physical thing anymore. He is also an ideal, something that you think about, something that you believe in. And that's far more powerful than having someone that's actually physically there, like the Galactic Empire's Emperor, you know, Palpatine. Because once you kill him, this entire structure, this entire pyramid that's been built under him also just collapses immediately. You know, he hasn't been able to transcend that physical existence into a metaphorical existence where people start believing in the Emperor as a god or as a deity that needs to be worshipped, you know, as a being that is beyond our physical presence, just like the God Emperor in the Imperium of Man. So yeah, he's right about that.
Because everybody here isn't fueled by a religious fervor or a true sense of idealism for the most part, but rather ambition, power, and respect for power. It's like a Sith Empire, but without fucking Sith in it. So how could they get to the Emperor? I mean, for one thing, the Imperium could just bulldoze their way to wherever the Galactic Emperor is and kill Palpatine, but they could also do it in a million different ways. You know, the Imperium has the hammer, but it also has the knife, and it has the knife in a million different ways. Like, you know, the assassin. That's the thing. It's like if you take away the Imperium's entire fleet power and give them just the temples, the assassin temples, they could probably still win the war on just that avenue. The Imperium has so layered in lethality. It has so many ways of coming after you that it's hard for me to even countenance the idea of the entire Imperium fight. It's too warforged. They're too about killing. Even Palpatine never had a chance to create institutions that would measure up to the Imperial institutions, just because Palpatine never had a war, like a real war, where he was really pressed for real survival. Even the rebellion was just this little stupid thing that if he didn't get personally involved and like decide to be in the same room as the fucking chosen one and shit, like Luke Skywalker when all this shit was going down, if he decided just to spring the trap on the rebellion and not be there for it, he would have won. He had many, many different ways of beating the rebellion. It was his own arrogance that ended up destroying his empire. So just to say that the rebels did not represent that kind of threat that the Warhammer 40K Imperium is completely accustomed to just chewing on day after day after day. So there's my long form answer. Short form answer is I think that the Empire would be technically more capable of resisting. Not the First Order. The First Order is way too small. The First Order is just a big space gun pointed at the head of the galactic civilians. And if someone doesn't fucking care about that, then they have no power. Like, really, outside of like whatever their actual fleet reach is, which we're led to believe is not that big.
But somehow they were so menacing in the movies, you know, they were so powerful in the movies. And you know, it's as if like there was a galactic shift because of the First Order. But yeah, somehow, some way.
But there you go. Let's go up to Carrie Yang. Q&A. Will you be bringing much more human chapters like the Lamenters or the Space Wolves? And will we be seeing conflicts on major planets like Kashyyyk, Rothana, and Camino? Yes and yes. No more than that can I say, but yes and yes. Let's see here. Dat boy! Q&A. Do any of the Marines or Guard have any Heresy-era equipment? Yes, but I can't really tell you what it is. But yes, of course, man. I'm not going to bring... You think I'm going to bring in the Zek-Tech? There's a reason the Zek-Tech sector has been all isolated and crap. It's so I can give them old shit. Old shit's the best in Warhammer. So yeah, there's some old stuff hanging around. Of the 3 chapters, who are their gene sires? Well, you know, as with...
I mean, Gilliman, right? Vulcan. I'm not sure about the Crimson Razors. I'm not sure about them. Yeah.
With all... hold on one second. Let me just get some water. Okay. So, as with most chapters at this point in time that are not direct descendant chapters or chapters from like the first or second founding, it's a little difficult for some of these chapters to figure out or pinpoint precisely who their gene sire was. But at this point in time, all 3 are pretty certain of who they came from. Obviously, Skywatch is Gilliman. Crimson Razors are Dornish. And the Tempered Hands are the Iron Hands. You know, coming from good old Ferrus Manus. So that's more or less their gene sires. Let's go up. Bryce Smith. Q&A. Provided they both know what the other is, who would win? Your average Jedi or your average Space Marine? Can a Space Marine with a power sword break a lightsaber? Okay, so it depends on the power sword. Let me just answer that one first. Certain power swords would be able to break or refract or bend lightsaber blades. But that's because power swords are not all made the same, and there are some truly ridiculous power swords in the Warhammer 40K universe, and there aren't a lot of truly ridiculous lightsabers. Could it bend the Darksaber? Well, now we're getting into some weird-ass non-crystal-based technology, so who the hell knows. But a standard lightsaber, certain power swords. But don't bet on that being most of them. Now, who would win, your average Jedi or your average Space Marine? Your average Space Marine would win. Like, hands down. And the problem isn't really a power-level problem. A Jedi could be trained up to defeat Space Marines because they're Psychers, and Psychers are very powerful. And they're Psychers that don't have to deal with standard Psyker bullshit, so it makes them even more powerful. But you have to remember that the Knights are mostly monks, you know? Like, they are Knights, but they're monistic Knights, monkish Knights. So, they're not really war-bred. This 4-year war with the Confederacy, which all things considered is a pretty low-key, like, cool, pretty chill war. Yeah, a lot of clones die, but the enemy is all droids. You know, you can really go all out against them, and you don't get nearly the same kind of, like, moral and force-based repercussions that you would otherwise. So, the Jedi are just not made for war. They're peacekeepers. They really are peacekeepers that are stretched into generals, but they're peacekeepers first and foremost. You know, a more apt comparison would be like, who would win? Your average Adeptus Arbites or your average Jedi? Because they actually fulfill roles that are much more similar to each other.
With that shotgun, it's an Arbites. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Arbites would win.
And in that case, I would say that a Jedi probably wins more often. But it's by a hair. Like, it's almost a 50-50 roll because the Jedi exist in a much more peaceful galaxy, and the Arbites obviously are not Space Marines. So suddenly the Jedi have a whole lot of advantages in their prescience, you know, their ability to foresee the future and to sense things like spider sense style, sense hostility, have the ability to use the Force to redirect physical attacks with the telekinetic pushes, and being able to deflect laser-based and last attacks with their lightsabers if they can move fast enough. And they're pretty good at moving fast enough and telling things of the future, and because of the use of the power surge. So it's it would probably, in the case of an Adeptus Arbites fighting a Jedi, I'd say that the Jedi average, these are averages by the way, and we have to make a point here about how far outside the average certain Jedi can be, but in average states, I'm going to give it to the Jedi 6 out of 10 times, and the reason that the Arbites get so much more is because they deal with a lot more. it's almost like asking, okay, in a standard battle between a fully loaded Mandalorian and a Jedi, who wins? You know, the Mandalorian can pull out a victory. We've watched Mandalorians unmake Jedi, and you cannot call Ahsoka Tano, Anakin Skywalker, or Obi-Wan Kenobi typical Jedi. You know, Ahsoka is literally fighting and defeating Darth Maul at the age of like 16. You know, she is incredible, like an unspeakable prodigy. You know, she, insofar as lightsaber combat, she is probably the penultimate result of like the Jedi Order of that era. There probably is no greater duelist ultimately than Ahsoka Tano, because at the age of 16, she's defeating Darth Maul. Just like, you know, like no fucking dark side boost, just straight up on a fucking rafter with variable kinds of like terrain to get over. So she's defeating Darth Maul at 16. Her masters are literally Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, who we can presume are always training her off screen. And who the fuck are they? They're the motherfuckers that, like, beat each other, beat fucking Mace Windu. Like, they're the penultimate duelists of the Jedi Order outside of Yoda himself. And Yoda trains everybody. You know, Yoda is a training slut. So Yoda's... She's been trained by Yoda. She's been trained by Anakin Skywalker. She's been trained by Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then she went through the dark time. So she put all that training down to the razor's edge.
I think all, you know, Padawans and all Jedi, you know, they've all been taught by Master Yoda. Especially if it were, you know, like the young beginning stages of them becoming Jedi. Definitely Yoda is the main class, the main teacher to go to. And then as you get older and as you are, you know, assigned to your new master, or your new master chooses you, I don't know how the process goes, then yeah, Master Yoda doesn't teach you anymore. You know, he's just that professor you knew when you were still a young child. And if you get into the council, of course you'll see your professor there with you, and yeah, you know, he's just that very grandfather, elderly figure person in the Jedi Order. He teaches you when you are young, but as you grow older, you are left over to other Jedi to be taught. But you'll have the basic core foundations from Yoda. Yeah.
I really think that, like, that there can really be truly very, very few Jedi who are better than Ahsoka at lightsaber dueling, and those who are have the Force to thank for it, because Ahsoka's connection to the Force is a more or less average connection. She's just got incredible tutelage to go along with it, and like incredible role models to follow.
As victories mount, so too will resistance.
But yeah, standard Jedi versus standard Space Marine. Space Marines are made for this. I think I give it to the Space Marine. That being said, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Count Dooku, before he turned to the dark side, Yoda, Anakin, they all stand way outside of the standard Jedi. You know, like, we can literally watch armies of other Jedi be butchered before they even get a scratch, which they're almost something else. Like, really. And you might say, oh, that's the difference between a Jedi and a Jedi Master. But no, other Jedi Masters who have that title don't measure up to them. They're really wild in, like, how far outside the norm they have been shown themselves to be. Because we have scaling of Jedi being butchered and killed, not just by the clone troopers. And it's really clear that those Jedi are like heroes among heroes to a mythical extent, basically. In any case, moving on from that, Q&A. Have you seen Brother Alpha Boosta's new series, Hunter the Parenting? Okay, so I started watching that. I have to finish.
Not me.
I actually got distracted and pulled away from it, and now I'm just doing this. But I am watching that. I'm gonna finish watching that. It looked, you know, my heart hurts because I know that we're gonna get this, but we're not gonna get more because, you know, GW is like, they suck. But so it's hard for me to muster the same gumption. At the same time, it looked hilarious. Why is the Emperor wearing Reno 911 style shorts? Like, well, you are not feeding my son to to a fire. I love Dorn. I really do. But yeah, I noticed that. I love that. You know, everyone should definitely check it out if they haven't noticed it yet. Alpha Boost has definitely got something out there that needs to be seen. Like basically everything that comes out of that channel. Fucking brilliant. Alright, let's see here. And that was from Plan Sandbag. Not Plain Sandbag, Plan Sandbag. Alright, next. David Jackson. Q&A pertaining to power scaling. Dooku could kill a space marine in plain open combat. I'm not counting the previous 4 due to them being ambushes, but Anakin struggled with help to take down one. We know that Anakin and Dooku, while not equal in skill, were rather closely matched. So does this imply that if Anakin let himself go, per se, he would be more than a match for standard Astartes? I would also think it is interesting to note that Dooku is using a lesser form against Astartes, at least according to Anakin.
I think the issue is that battle with Anakin, that Astartes soldier was using a power sword, right? He wasn't using his bolter guns, and Anakin Skywalker doesn't have Force Lightning, and here, Count Dooku had Force Lightning. He was using it on the bolter rounds and also the bolter gun, and he destroyed it. And he had that element of surprise with him, Count Dooku. He did have the element of surprise. With Anakin, he was caught surprised, if I can say that, the Astartes with the power sword, came at him quite fast, after they realized that he was a witch. So, yeah. I think it's just the moment and the time and the place where the battles are occurring, which also give an upper hand to either Count Dooku or Anakin Skywalker at that time, moment, and place. And the types of weapons that the Astartes are using against them. Clearly, bolter guns are not going to work against Jedi. They can swerve the bullets away from them. And if they're a dark side user, then they can use their Force Lightning to destroy the guns. And the only way to actually have a chance at defeating Jedi is to have a power sword or a gauntlet or a hammer or anything like that. Something that can allow you to have close quarter battles with a Jedi. That will work. But if it's guns, if it's anything that shoots out projectiles, they'll just deflect them away. They'll just use the Force, and that's the main reason why Count Dooku also won against that Astartes. Yeah.
Had another question, if you don't mind me asking. If you do, then you can end here. Anakin jokingly mentioned ringing up Death Watch for help. How much help do you actually think they would be, unless that is your plan for them? Okay, so Anakin would never ring up Death Watch. He had to get pushed to a pretty far place to actually do that, because Anakin is a pretty proud person and he hates Death Watch. In no small reason, in no small part because of their threatening of Ahsoka Tano's life, kind of time and time again. So he's not down to work with terrorists, at least not, without a really good reason. But that being said, how much help would Death Watch be? There'd be a lot of help, because anybody's a lot of help right now. The Republic needs people who will be able to take measures against the Imperium and understands the Imperium's measures in turn. And they don't really have that right now. Even Tarkin doesn't quite understand what he's dealing with, which I think is actually demonstrated pretty well in Dark Horizons, because he is laying out some pretty common sense, good military strategy, but he doesn't really get what the Imperium is yet. Nobody can really get it yet. Death Watch wouldn't need to get it. They're standing, just right off the bat against whoever it is you're fighting. Tactics are already extreme enough that they would do a better job at matching the Imperium's tactics, which are somewhere in the same ballpark. That being said, Death Watch is decimated. They don't have a lot of people left. Their biggest roles, if they were to be used, their biggest way of benefiting would be as advisors and leadership potentially to train others, but potentially just to lead existing troops with their ideology instead of the standard Republic ideology. But again, not super likely because of Anakin not really being cool with them in any capacity. Let's see here. Okay, so yes, okay. So between Anakin and Dooku, so you have to remove yourself from this frame of perspective. That is that those are one-to-one comparisons, because they're not. Arachnus and who was the brother who Anakin defeated? He was a sword brother. Anakin went toe-to-toe with a Space Marine sword brethren. Like, that's more or less what this guy was the equivalent of. He was part of a standard tac squad, but he had distinguished himself in battle and in melee combat in previous engagements to the point that he was awarded a power sword for use in combat. Not just like a standard chainsword, a whole dead-ass power sword. So that by itself, whenever you see a Space Marine wielding a power sword, those are rare relics. They're not just given away, and you have to earn them. Otherwise, you just get a standard issue weapon like a chainsword. So his power sword really went to show you how that Space Marine was a singled out, skilled combatant with melee weapon, even in a chapter that is, by its own admission, going more and more in that direction, to the point of that Arachnus, the other Space Marine, funny enough, actually in his head chastises the other Space Marines for relying so much on melee weapons, because as far as he's concerned, Dornish Marines have always been fire-first Marines who use their bolters and are very proud of them. And he doesn't like the way that the rest of the chapter is leaning into this Black Templar mindset of combat. So Anakin was fighting with a swordmaster who had a swordmaster's sword. Dooku was fighting with a gunmaster. And again, this maybe would have been a little bit different, but the problem is that Dooku has a perfect counter for bolters in the form of his Force Lightning, which allows him to destroy and detonate the bolts before they can reach him. The Force Lightning itself is as fast as lightning, which means it can catch the bolts before they reach him, even though the bolts are moving at a hypersonic speed. And it detonates them. It detonates them and chases them right back up the barrel, causing the ammunition to detonate and therefore destroying the gun. That left Brother Arachnus with not even a power knife. It left him with a adamantium combat knife that even began to superheat in his hands, making it hard to wield while he was trying to fend Dooku off. So, yes, Dooku's style was a certain way, but Anakin and Dooku aren't necessarily one-to-one, and even if they were, certainly Arachnus and his sword brother are not one-to-one. They had very different approaches to combat, and those fights began in very, very different ways. And, Arachnus was disarmed. He had a bad matchup, not just in his skill set, but in the actual equipment he had loaded up. So that doesn't really speak so much to that comparison as much as you might think it does, just because of those big reasons. All right, let's go ahead. Lord Commander 3575, Q&A, a few sections. Oh my goodness. Will we see any Vostroyan firstborns, as well as drop regiments like Elysians or Harkoni Warhawks? Yes, you will see those kinds of troops inside of this series. Imperial Knights. All right, I can only answer a few more of these. Are any knight houses with the Zectec forces? How many are there? There are some knight houses. I am not at liberty to discuss their entire regimental strength at this moment. Their entire military strength at this moment. But yes, there are knights, though a fair amount of them are actually knight houses of the Mechanicus, so they're not quite your typical knights. Which houses are sworn? I can't tell you that. Are any of the houses close to the great houses? Again, that being the case, it's better for you to find out from a character related to those houses inside the story. I think you may have the size of the Faithful Flame wrong because it isn't a Knight Preceptor of the Questorn pattern. because you describe it in a price of honor as being close to 50 feet tall. That would make it as tall or even a little taller than a Warhound Scout Titan, which contradicts the lore stating that only got taller than those. I would have to look back on my numbers to give you a clear answer on like the lore accuracy of the different heights that I've given inside of the lore, but I will say this. Try not to be super rigid with lore things like Titan sizes, especially when it comes to Warhounds and Knights that are anywhere near the size, because in my experience, those are variable between books. Like I know for a fact that I don't just pull any of these sizes out of my butt. I am quoting every time I put any kind of number down into this series. I'm quoting from some sort of scale reference that I've gotten from another series. So you can definitely trust that that's where I've gotten those numbers. It's the only time I feel very confident in putting numbers down. In any case, let's see here. That will be the last one I answer here, just as I need to be moving along. It's almost an hour at this point, so let me get a few more in if I can. Let's see here. Emmanuel grows. Okay, I can't pronounce your last name, Emmanuel, but it's a big one that starts with a G. Q&A. Will the Imperium recruit conscripts of some Star Wars species as abhuman regiments to make up for their low manpower? Could we have as a short video about Imperial and Republic scholars and scientists reacting to each other's cultures? For example, I can't really answer this because I may very well do this, but if I am going to do this, I wouldn't want to tell you about it because otherwise it's spoilers, so I can't really tell you. Let's see here. Another Russian name that starts with a B. Q&A. Will Ahsoka and Admech conversation have any consequences? Yes, everything will have consequences. Right now, she is the only one on the Star Wars side who sees the Imperium soldiers as human beings. Horrible human beings, yes, but someone who someone who deserves a pity. Yes, she kind of is. But you know, we'll see. That's spoilers. You'll have to see more about that as we go along. Chris Garbut. Let's see. Q&A. What will the Eldar think of the Star Wars galaxy, the Sith and the Jedi? If the Eldar appear, you'll have to wait to see what they think. Will we see Rey and Kylo Ren? If I go all the way to my original desire, then yes. If my original, okay, I have a loose, okay, I don't know. Okay. I've shown this skeleton to certain people, and they don't think it's very loose. They're like, oh my god, you basically have this thing plotted all the way to fucking the sequels. But like,
and make sure that if Kylo Ren and Rey are together, make sure it's a natural progression to that. Let's not be surprised one day they just start kissing out of nowhere, you know, if they are going to be falling in love with each other, let's see that process. Let's see them, get closer to each other and, have that lovey-dovey kind of situation. Not just what we saw in the Disney Channel movies, yeah. Why do I call it Disney Channel? Sorry. But the Disney movies, yeah.
I consider it a pretty loose skeleton, but I do have a loose skeleton that goes all the way from now, through the Dark Times, through the Rebellion era, into the New Republic era, and all the way to the sequel trilogies. And if I ever get out there, you will see Rey and Kylo Ren, at least incarnations of them. The galaxy will be a very different place by the time we get out that far, however. Will we get to see the Imperium liberating human slaves from worlds like the Zygerian Empire? You may, but I can't tell you anything about that. You'd have to just wait to see the reactions. Will the Imperium use a censored version of the HoloNet for propaganda similar to the Great Firewall of China? You will have to wait to see what they do insofar as the HoloNet. And it's, it's half the Imperium, quote-unquote, and half, dead-ass the Mechanicus, who are going to be the ones in charge of any technology, really. So then, let's see here. Going up to the top. Kiran Taya Goff. Q&A. Will fear of humans affect the galaxy like make alien races to humans and force them to join the Imperium of Man? Or make Palpatine Palpatine's time in the Senate harder because of the fear of humans?
I like this question. Yes, there's a high possibility that the humans of the Star Wars galaxy might be targeted by other alien races across the galaxy. Because the Imperium of Man are made up of human beings, and the civilian population might start panicking and start wanting to find someone to blame, and they'll be blaming the humans. And also, the Chancellor is human, so politically it might really, be a very serious situation for Palpatine, and also socially, as the Star Wars galaxy, they might unravel because of this situation where they are fighting against an Imperium of Man that considers all Xeno life as abominations, as things that need to be killed, and they are living amongst with humans as well. So it will create some sort of animosity, some sort of divisions being created in society, and and politically, for human politicians, particularly the Chancellor, he might have problems. Because the societies are not set in stone. They're not stable forever. There will be times where there is upheaval, there is disunity, and it will happen in the Star Wars galaxy too, I think. Yeah.
I cannot tell you the galaxy's reaction, at least not in its totality, but, you're not wrong in thinking that people will have a reaction to this human empire suddenly showing up and devouring entire species the moment they get the chance to. But you'll have to wait to see the precise reactions to that. Panzer Steel Pro, Q&A, what is the current state of the Republic's economy? Because in certain episodes we hear about if the interest rates increase and the Republic would go bankrupt. Or is that different now that Palpatine is in charge of the banks? Yeah, Palpatine has already begun privatization of the banks, and now the galaxy is in the face of an existential threat. Because of this existential threat, let's just say that the banks, even the ones that remain less controlled by the vice grip of the Supreme Chancellor, will be very, very, very understanding when it comes to remodifying those loans and extending the payment dates for certain interests, and even by lowering or slashing or completely eliminating interest rates entirely. Those things are only important up until an Imperial battle fleet is approaching your homeworld or planet, and then it's like, well, fuck me, definitely can't foreclose on the Republic right now. But definitely that has an effect. Everything's having an effect on that. The Republic economy will become less and less relevant as the Republic is forced to begin resembling the Empire in its fight to defeat it or survive it. Will we get to see another table talk where Jedi admirals, generals? Yes, there will be. There will definitely. This series is not going to just be battles, though. When the battles engage, they engage in. There's a lot of people that matter here, and you want to see where they go and what they live, and first contacts between different factions. So. There will definitely be a lot going on in the battles, but by no means do I intend for this series to be all battles. There's always going to be before battles, there's always going to be after battles, there's going to be setup, and there's always going to be epilogue. So, for certain, there will be scenes like what you're describing. You said that you wanted to time travel between Star Wars and 40K, but is there the possibility of traitor Space Marines pre-Horus heresy, like loyal emperors, children, sons of Horus, thousand sons, of traitor Space Marines pre-Horus heresy? Pre-Horus heresy. So what, like good traitor legions? Like traitor legions that haven't turned traitor yet? No, I'm not really planning on throwing them in. They would make a mess of everything. The plot needs to stay cohesive. And if I just tossed in the pre-heresy forces, it would basically be its own faction, because they would not be allowed or in any way permitted to even approach the standard Imperial loyalists. You tell me what you think any of these Imperial factions would do upon receiving those IFFs, which would be ancient IFFs that would have been used by the traitor legions. There's going to be like 8 different black style programs that pop up and go, uh-oh, traitors, traitors, traitors. If you don't know about demons, prepare for mind wiping, but only after you finish this fight. Like, definitely they would be their own faction. They'd have to deal with their own things. And, you know, the Thousand Sons might be interesting. The Sons of Horus might be interesting. Maybe even the Emperor's Children. But, like, those legions are really fucked up a lot of the times because of the way they're treated by their Primarch. And so trying to figure out what they would do in this galaxy is kind of a hard thing to do, and it might not be as interesting as you might think. The Emperor's Children, Sons of Horus, Thousand Sons at this point in time are much more civilized than, because it's before the heresy even, so they're much more civilized than your standard Space Marines and your standard Imperium, and they may very well decide that it's just tactically sound to sit back, do nothing, observe, and then take action once an action worth taking is being taken. But those Space Marines would be much more interested in figuring out how to get back to their universe. They may be interested in, like, the existing Imperial's history records because they're, like, you know, records of their future, but it's also equally possible they would dismiss those things as they come from a different universe. They're not, like, they're no more a part of our timeline than these weirdos in this weirdo Xenos galaxy are. And so, you know, it may not be as interesting and spicy as it initially sounds like it might be. Not compared to something like, you know, the Black Legion showing up, because they definitely have an agenda. So let's see here. Ricky4990. Okay, Ricky, today this is going to be the last question, because otherwise I think we're going to go on for a little too long. So, Q&A. Will we get a scene where Dr. Sheena and the other scientists, or at least her and Bucket, analyze and talk about the photos retrieved and given by Echo in Episode 9? Spoilers, I can't tell you about that. I'll do one more question since I can't really get into that too much. Let's see here. Q&A. While we know that the Star Wars human supremacy cult, forgot its name, has been almost entirely sent into the void, how many potential sympathizers, surviving members, do you think could be out there? A ton, but they're very buried and like, you know, okay. There were a ton at the time that their battle fleet was sent out into the void, because they were a massive cultural movement with widespread popular support amongst certain human factions. And that support wouldn't just vanish. There are secret shrines hidden here. There are families of ancient power that remember it as part of their roots. There may even be co-conspirators that have been trying to bring this about, just not through war, that now suddenly see a chance for the return of the old way. That being said, the vast majority of the human population in the galaxy don't even know about the PSDA, much less have any real ties to the PSDA. And with that last question from Just a Doc, I think I will go ahead and put it down. It's been a great Q&A, guys, and I hope to see you when we come back on January 1st with the next big full episode. So until then, I'll see you then. Bye.
Okay, guys, that is it with Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K short special in Defiance of Fate after talk made by AFanWithTooMuchTime. And yes, you know, the questions surrounding, you know, the power levels of regular Astartes and regular Jedi was quite interesting. The questions around, you know, what would happen if, you know, the Imperium of Man fought against either the Resistance or the First Order or the New Republic or the Galactic Empire, you know, how would they fare? And who would actually survive and come out on top? Like I've said, you know, the Galactic Empire is the most viable option. All the other ones, I'm sorry, they just won't make it. They just really won't make it. And he was also answering questions about the machine spirit within AI or virtual intelligence in the Star Wars galaxy, whether the Jedi can sense any of that. And yeah, you know, I'm also still wondering whether, you know, a machine spirit exists in R2D2, for instance, or C3PO, you know, because they've been very lucky. You know, they've survived through many situations, and they have the support and love of their, you know, human counterpart, Anakin Skywalker. So yeah, that's also a very important and interesting question to ask about. And you know what Adventure Time was saying about Michael Wilson, you know, his performance in the special short or short special was also very good. You know, like I said before, his voice really reminds me of those documentaries I used to watch on television. And yeah, his performance was really, really good. And guys, I guess that is it. That is it for today with Adventure Time. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as Adventure Time's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And I will see you guys next week. Okay?